Yo, what up? It's Noel. Today I'm going to be breaking down Next to You with Josh Rubin and Nikademis.
I'll be next to you.
So this song started out with this guitar. It was part of a demo that Nikademis sent over, and when I heard this guitar, I knew that I had to make a whole song around it. So this is what the guitar sounds like. And if you know the song, you'll notice that that's the main sound in the drop, just one of those. And so I decided to get that chord progression and flesh it out more. Here was the drop that Nikademis first sent over. The initial version of the drop had a lot more 16th notes and faster notes. I decided to simplify it a little bit so that it was more headbanging and like the rhythm was more simple, like boom, boom, and so that's kind of what I did to the drums. I have my kick and my snare separated into a different bus than the rest of my drums, just because I want to process those differently. The processing that I'm using for my drum bus is this plugin called Diablo by Cymatics. It's basically like a clipper and a compressor and EQ all in one. The main things that I'm doing here that's really important is the clip, the punch, which is basically like a transient shaper, and then the sizzle for high end. But this plugin is super, super, super powerful. So you got to make sure that you only use it at a very low mix. So maximum clipping, maximum high end, but very low mix so that it doesn't overpower your sound. The next part of the song that I started working on was basically the verses. And I really liked that chord progression in the original guitar sample. But I knew I wanted to do something with a different vibe. So for the verse, I decided to slow the progression down and play each chord at half the speed. And so here are the verse strings and the piano. Let me try to break down how these strings were made. The key is automation. That's the most important thing when it comes to contact libraries. So this contact library is called Spitfire Symphonic Strings. I like this library for more cinematic songs, any song that the strings need to be in a very big room with lots of players and lots of reverb. For a song that is more intimate, say like pop, R&B, classical, I would rather use Spitfire Chamber Strings library, which is basically less players, smaller room, more intimate sound. This one, I'm going for the symphonic strings. Here's the violin by itself. Notice the automation that I have. One of these is vibrato, and the other one is overall dynamics. This automation basically informs the plugin on how to perform the articulation. So listen to it and watch the automation and listen to the sound. And then we're going down, coming back up, and then coming back down. If you just do this intentionally, you'll be able to make your strings sound much better. And one way to think about it that I found very useful is to kind of compare it to the human voice. So if you were to sing this melody, like how would you sing it? Which notes would be louder and which notes should be softer, right? So and then once you kind of figured that out in your brain, it's pretty easy to just like draw the automation in according to the way you sing it. So like starting off softer, getting louder, and then coming back down. I always find that's the most helpful because I always say that strings or violins, they're just like the human voice in terms of articulation because they can do both short sounds and long sounds, which most instruments can't. Most instruments can only do just long sounds or like staccato and legato sounds, but strings and the voice can do both and switch between them. So I think the way that you phrase the human voice and the way you phrase strings should be very similar. The next part of the song that we started working on would be the vocal After getting the instrumental to a good spot, I sent the instrumental over to Josh Rubin. This was the scratch vocal that we came up with.
Close to you has never felt so far away.
That line, close to you has never felt so far away. The moment we wrote that, like we both looked at each other and we knew that we had struck gold. I feel like that line has so many layered meanings. Our initial idea of it was basically a couple or anyone in a relationship being physically close to each other, but yet feeling emotionally far away. And even though like you can get closer physically, you're not able to close that emotional gap. And that's what this song is about. It's like close to you has never felt so far away. Once we had kind of approved this vocal, we started working on the final vocals and we had changed the lyrics a little bit. So here's the final vocals with the harmonies.
You're floating now, it feels like you're in outer space, but I'm in the same place. Promise I won't change, I'll be next to you.
Once we got to that part, I decided I wanted to keep the energy up after the first drop and keep on building into a second drop. We made this build leading out of the first drop.
You're floating now, it feels like you're in outer space, but I'm in the same place. Promise I won't change, I'll be next to you.
As for this heavy drop, Nick killed it with the glitches. Let me kind of go through what he did right here. Here's the second drop by itself. So it basically has a similar flow as the first drop, except the drum is a little bit more frequent. And then also the chord progression is different. It just stays on the minor, the harmonic minor of the key. And then it kind of goes back to the original chord progression at the end of the phrase. That's a really good way to kind of flip your song into the darker version, is to just hold the minor, the harmonic minor of the key that you're in, and then use the original melody of whatever you had, but just hold the minor underneath it. It'll just make your song way more dark. Lastly, I kind of want to go over some of the effects that I use in this song. This is an effect that I use in almost every song. It's basically just a piano note with lots of reverb on it. I love using this effect because it's tonal. I can change the key of it. And so whatever song I'm in, I always make sure that the piano note is playing on a key that works in the song. So that would either be the root or the fifth or some other note that works well. And so it sounds like this.
I just wanna be there too, even when you're falling down.
I'm a huge fan of using tonal ambience because I just want to make sure that everything in the background works with the chords. So everything that I have that's ambience here, if it has a note to it, I've tuned it to the correct note, which includes this atmosphere. Also this. When it comes to this piano note, all I did was take the tail of it, reverse it, leading into itself. And that just creates really good risers and reverses that are in tune with the key of your song. And that's going to be Next to You with Josh Rubin and Nikademis. If you have any questions about any particular sound, please let me know in the comments. I can answer any questions about processing chains, plugins, or specific samples I use. So just let me know. Thanks for tuning in.
You're floating now, it feels like you're in outer space, but I'm in the same place. Promise I won't change, I'll be next to you.